Chrysanthemum Chronicles, a time lapse from seed to solstice. The first steps, a gardener's first-person account. It all began with a dream. A vision of autumn bursting with color in my quiet garden. My journey with the chrysanthemum, a flower often seen as the stoic herald of fall, started not with a full-grown plant, but with a humble packet of seeds. I chose a variety that promised a riot of hues, yellows, bronzes, and deep magentas. The soil, a mix of compost and sandy loam, was a canvas waiting to be painted. In late winter, with the last frost still a threat, I sowed the tiny seeds indoors. I placed the tray under a gentle grow light, mimicking the long days to come. A fine mist of water each morning was my ritual, my silent prayer to the earth. The first few weeks were a lesson in patience. The seeds, no bigger than a grain of sand, seemed dormant. But then, on a crisp morning, I saw it, a tiny, green spear pushing through the dark soil. And then another, and another. My heart swelled with the joy of a new beginning. They were fragile at first, delicate threads of life. I watched them grow, each day a small victory, each new leaf a testament to the life force held within that tiny seed. The definitive guide to chrysanthemums, origins and taxonomy. The journey of the chrysanthemum, or mum, is a rich tapestry woven through centuries of human history. The name itself is derived from the Greek words chrysos, gold, and anthemon, flower, a nod to the original golden hue of its blooms. These fascinating plants belong to the Asteraceae family, a vast collection of flowering species that includes familiar names like daisies, sunflowers, and asters. The Asteraceae family is characterized by a composite flower head, where what appears to be a single flower is actually a dense cluster of many smaller florets. The history of the chrysanthemum is deeply rooted in ancient China, where its cultivation dates back to the 15th century BC. Initially valued for its medicinal properties and as a culinary herb, the flower eventually became a symbol of nobility and longevity. It was one of the four gentlemen of Chinese art, alongside the plum blossom, orchid, and bamboo, representing the ideals of perseverance and grace under pressure. From China, the chrysanthemum traveled to Japan in the 8th century, where it found a new level of reverence. The Japanese imperial family adopted a 16-petaled chrysanthemum as its official seal, and the imperial throne itself is known as the chrysanthemum throne. The flower's journey to Europe was slower, reaching the West in the 17th century, where it captivated botanists and gardeners. Today, there are countless varieties and cultivars, bred for their stunning diversity in color, shape, and size. The mid-year surge, a gardener's time lapse. By early spring, my little seedlings had outgrown their starter trays. It was time for them to brave the outdoors. The ground was still cool, so I hardened them off gradually, exposing them to the sun and wind for short periods each day. This process, a gardener's rite of passage, prepares the plants for the shock of transplanting. Finally, the day came. I carefully lifted each plant, its roots a delicate web of white, and placed them in their permanent beds. I gave them ample space, knowing they would soon become lush, full bushes. For the next few months, it was all about shaping. The factual guides call it pinching, but for me, it was an art form. Every couple of weeks, I gently pinch off the top inch of each stem. This simple act encouraged the plant to branch out, transforming a single, lanky stalk into a dense, multi-stemmed bush. My goal was a plant full of flowers, not at all spindly one with a few blooms at the top. The articles said to stop pinching by midsummer, and I followed the rule religiously, marking the date on my calendar. I remember the day I stopped. The plants, now about a foot tall, were sturdy and full, their leaves a vibrant green. The stage was set. A gardener's practical encyclopedia, cultivation and care. Growing chrysanthemums from seed, cutting, or a purchased plant requires attention to detail. Soil is key. They thrive in well-drained soil with a pH between 6.0 and 7.0. Amending heavy clay or sandy soil with organic matter like compost or well-rotted manure is crucial to improve structure and moisture retention. While they appreciate consistent moisture, they abhor soggy feet, which can lead to dreaded root rot. Sunlight is another non-negotiable. Chrysanthemums are sun worshippers, requiring a minimum of 6 hours of direct sunlight daily for robust growth and prolific blooming. A location with a southern or southeastern exposure is ideal. Be mindful of artificial light sources from street lights or porches, as these can interfere with the plant's light response flowering cycle. Pinching and pruning, the art of shaping. The pinching schedule is critical for a bushy, flower-filled plant. Initial pinch, when the plant is 6 to 8 inches tall. Pinch off the growing tip. Subsequent pinches, repeat this every 2 to 3 weeks until midsummer. The last pinch for early varieties, blooming in September, should be around mid-June. For mid-season varieties, October. The last pinch is around July 1st. For late flowering varieties, the final pinch should not be later than July 15th. Deadheading, as flowers fade. Remove the spent blooms, deadheading, to encourage the plant to produce more. Overwintering, for perennial varieties in colder climates. Cut the stems back to about 10 inches after the first frost and apply a 2 to 4 inch layer of mulch, straw or evergreen branches, to protect the roots. Fertilization and watering. Chrysanthemums are not heavy feeders. A balanced fertilizer like 5-10-5 or 10-6-4 can be worked into the soil before planting. Throughout the season, a dilute application every few weeks is beneficial. Over-fertilizing with nitrogen, however, can lead to excessive leafy growth at the expense of flowers. The bloom, a time lapse of color and form. The final chapter of my time lapse was the most rewarding. In late August, I saw the first hint of color. Tiny green buds, clustered at the tips of the stems, began to swell. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, they started to change color. The first one was a golden yellow. It unfurled its petals, a tight little bundle at first, then a grand firework of color. The other buds followed suit, each one a different hue, a different shape. Some were like perfect pom-poms, others a messy explosion of spidery petals, and some, like delicate spoons. The garden became a living work of art. The comparison the old article mentioned became real to me. My dahlias were indeed flamboyant extroverts. But my mums were the sophisticated residents of the garden. They were the reliable old friends, providing a burst of color when everything else was fading. The daisies were their carefree siblings. But the mums held a mature, layered beauty. Unlike the constant presence of the marigolds, the chrysanthemums were the grand finale of the season. A final, magnificent display before the long winter nap. Chrysanthemum taxonomy and diversity. The world of chrysanthemums is vast and complex, categorized into different classes based on their bloom form. Understanding these forms is key to appreciating the plant's incredible diversity. Irregular in curve, class 1, the largest blooms, with florets that curl inward to form a tight ball. Reflex, class 2, florets that curl outward and downward. Regular in curve, class 3, smaller than the irregular in curves, with a perfect, globe-like shape. Intermediate in curve, class 5, a less formal globe, with a looser appearance. Pompon, class 6, small, spherical, and compact blooms, resembling buttons. Anemone, class 8, a prominent, raised central disc with one or more rows of petals. Spoon, class 9, distinctive spoon-shaped petals with a tubular base and a flat, flared tip. Quill, class 10, long, straight, tubular florets. Spider, class 11, long, delicate, thread-like florets that may coil or hook at the ends. Brush or thistle, class 12, fine, tubular florets that are straight or twisted. Common pests and diseases. Even the hardiest plants can face challenges. Awareness of common pests and diseases is the first step to prevention and treatment. Pests, aphids, tiny, soft-bodied insects that suck sap, causing distorted leaves. Treatment, a strong spray of water or insecticidal soap. Spider mites, tiny arachnids that cause yellow stippling and fine webbing. Treatment, horticultural oil or insecticidal soap. Foliar nematodes, microscopic worms that cause yellow-brown spots on leaves, which then dry out and fall off. Treatment, no effective chemical control, remove and destroy infected plants. Diseases, powdery mildew, a white, powdery fungal growth on leaves. Prevention, good air circulation. Avoid overhead watering. Leaf spot, fungal diseases that cause spots on leaves. Prevention, remove and destroy infected leaves. Avoid overhead watering. Rust, fungi that cause pale areas on the top of leaves with orange pustules on the underside. Treatment, fungicides and good sanitation. The final harvest, a gardener's reflection. The cold nights began to creep in, a sign that the season was drawing to a close. My chrysanthemums, however, seemed to thrive on it. They were the last bastion of color, a vibrant spectacle that defied the coming winter. I harvested some of the blooms for bouquets, marveling at their size and perfect form. The old article mentioned that some varieties are used for tea, a fact I had to try for myself. I carefully dried some of the yellow petals and brewed a light, fragrant tea, a warm, soothing drink that felt like a final gift from the garden. The last frost finally arrived, putting a definitive end to the growing season. The mums, once so vibrant, turned brown and brittle. But I wasn't sad. I knew that beneath the soil, their roots, now strong and established, were waiting. They were hibernating, gathering strength for the next season. The time lapse had come to an end. But it wasn't a death. Just a pause. I had nurtured them from a tiny seed to a magnificent bush. And I knew they would return. A little wiser, a little stronger, ready to begin the time lapse all over again. The complete guide to chrysanthemum uses and symbolism. Beyond their ornamental value, chrysanthemums hold a wealth of medicinal, culinary, and cultural significance. Medicinal and culinary uses. Chrysanthemum tea, made from the dried flowers. This caffeine-free tea is popular in traditional Chinese medicine. It is rich in vitamins and minerals like potassium, magnesium, phosphorus, and iron. Health benefits. It is traditionally used to lower blood pressure, reduce fever, and treat headaches and inflammation. Some studies suggest it can aid in alcohol metabolism and protect the liver. Antibacterial properties. The essential oils in chrysanthemums have been shown to have antibacterial effects against various microbes. Natural insecticide. Certain species of chrysanthemum, particularly Chrysanthemum cinerariifolium, are the primary source of the natural insecticide pyrethrum. These plants are often used as companion plants in gardens to repel pests. Toxicity. It is crucial to note that while some varieties are edible, many ornamental varieties are toxic to cats and dogs. Cultural significance and symbolism. The meaning of the chrysanthemum varies dramatically across the globe. In China, it symbolizes longevity, royalty, and good fortune, especially for the elderly. It is the flower of the ninth moon and is celebrated during the double ninth festival. In Japan, it is the flower of the emperor and the imperial family. It represents royalty, honor, and longevity. In the United States, it is widely associated with autumn, joy, and optimism. It is often used in festive fall arrangements. In Europe, in countries like France, Italy, and Belgium, the chrysanthemum is a symbol of death and mourning, and is commonly used in funerary arrangements. This association stems from its autumnal blooming period, which coincides with All Saints' Day. In Australia, it is the official flower for Mother's Day. The color of the bloom also carries specific meaning: white, purity, honesty, and devoted love. In some Asian cultures, it symbolizes grief and lamentation. Red, deep love and passion. Yellow often symbolizes friendship and happiness, though in some cultures it can represent neglected love or sorrow. Pink, adoration, affection, and motherhood. Purple, royalty, luxury, and elegance. Orange, energy, enthusiasm, and joy. This detailed journey, from a tiny seed in a tray to a magnificent floral display, showcases the enduring allure of the chrysanthemum, a plant that is so much more than a simple seasonal decoration. It is a symbol of resilience, a vessel of history, and a timeless beauty that continues to inspire.